Hello there, people of the internet. Today is just a quick informational video because before I did this particular thing, I was looking for videos like this and there weren't that many. So I figured I would just make one to reiterate what other people had said and also my own personal experience. Back in June 14th, I auditioned for The Voice. They came to Cleveland. It was a 2-day audition process. They had times on the 14th and the 15th at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. I signed up online. This was back a while ago, but you could pretty much sign up until the date, really. Online, you create an artist account, you pick, fill in like a couple little informational things, and then you pick the day you want, the venue you want, and the time you want. So they came to Cleveland. It was at Cleveland Public Auditorium. My audition time was at 7 o'clock in the morning. So my mom and I stayed at a hotel right by the venue overnight, and then we got up super early. I made her get up super early, and then we had left the hotel and we were getting in line at about 5:30 in the morning, I believe, and there were already like a ton of people there. We were relatively close to the door, but within like the next 10-15 minutes the line had wrapped like completely around the building, and it was a really big building. So basically we waited outside for a little bit until we actually got in the actual building. Once we got in the building, if you brought like family members or friends, they had to stay outside. I was a minor, so my mom had to come in with me because I wasn't allowed to go by myself unless I was 18. We waited in little roped off lines, and then they sent like one line at a time through, and then they sent you through like a little security place, and then you waited in line, then they checked your papers, and then you went over and sat in chairs for a while. And then once a bunch of people had been checked in and they were like ready to audition people, they counted you off in groups of 10 and like lined you up over by a door, and then they took probably like 5 groups of 10 in at a time and took you to 5 different rooms or so. So once you were in line, like whatever, and then you went through the doors and you went downstairs into a little another little holding area, and in there you weren't allowed to take any more pictures, like you couldn't take pictures or video or anything. And then from there they took you to wait outside the actual audition room, and you sat in chairs. In one of the lines they gave you like wristbands, so once you were in the chairs they collected your papers, they cut off your wristbands, and then you waited until the group like ahead of you was like done, and then you filed in or whatever. There were 5 chairs on one side and 5 chairs on the other, kind of in like a V formation with like a piece of tape in the middle, and then there were chairs in the back of the room for parents or like guardians. So my mom sat back there. The producer guy in the room just was kind of like, "Hi guys, like thanks for coming today," or whatever, said a couple things, and then he was like, "So we're gonna start off with Elise." So of course I had to go first in my room. I was the youngest person in my room. So I stood up, stepped on the tape, and I was like, "I'm Elise Duvall and I'm gonna sing," I sang "Because of You" by Kelly Clarkson, and he's like, "Just start like from wherever in the song that you want, really." So I started at the beginning of the bridge and sang to the end of the song. He was like, "Thank you." Then he had me sit down, and then everybody else in my room sang, and then there was like 1 or 2 people in my room where he's like, "What's your other song?" And so they sang their other song, and then we all sat down. He wrote down on some paper and whatnot, and then he said, "Thanks guys for coming out. This takes like a lot of guts," or whatever. He's like, "But we have a ton of people to consider in our audition, like thank you all for coming out here, but today we're only gonna take," and I forget what her name was, or she, so she stayed back in the room, and I ended up catching up with her later. She's like, he's like, "For the rest of you have to know," and then she's like, "I'm gonna end up," sorry, I'm so off track. He said, "For the rest of you have to know," and so she stayed behind, and I ended up catching up with her later, and I was like, "Oh, how did it go?" And she's like, "Oh, he said it's a maybe," so I don't know how she ended up doing, but then so yeah, they have over, I think someone said like 10,000 1,000 people to audition in 2 days at 4 different time slots, and they only are allowed to take like 30 or maybe a couple more than that, like 30 people from the whole weekend. And I got into actually audition at around 10 o'clock, and auditions had started at 7, and the very first person they had said anything like for sure to, the very first person they had sent through was in the room right before me. So normally on like American Idol and like a couple other shows, they like, it looks like there's everybody in the room is like freaking terrible and like all this stuff. Literally every single person I heard sing that day, including my room, any other room, was amazing, like top notch. Like at first I like felt like I shouldn't have been there. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like a little child compared to all these people. Once I actually auditioned and like had a bunch of people like in my room like tell me like, wow, that was really good, like even like for someone as young as you, like that was really good, and I was like, thank you, like that meant a lot, because I heard them sing and they were like amazing. Like it literally blew my mind, and it felt nice to be like in a room with a bunch of other people who were that amazing telling me I was just as good as them. But like I don't want there to be the misconception that you're going in and there's like a couple people in your room who are good and then nobody gets sent through and you're like, what the heck? But literally every single person there that day was amazing, and I still can't even really like put it into words like how good they were. So by the time we did all our waiting, turned in all our paper, actually physically got out of the building, I think it was around 10:30. So from about 5:30 to 10:30, which is about 5 hours, which is actually really good. They were super, super organized. I have not like done Idol or like anything like that. But what I heard from these other people who had camped out for like Idol and stuff, they said The Voice is super, super organized, and I totally got that. Like in, out, 5 hours, like that is basically unheard of, especially for something that large of a scale. So that was really nice. So I hope this helped for anybody who is kind of wondering what to expect in their original open call audition. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.